The world of auditing can seem like this maze of complex rules and regulations. But what if I told you there's one standard that really just boils down to a single, powerful idea, a conversation? We're diving into something called ISA 260, and as we're about to see, getting this one conversation right can literally change an organization's future.
So that leads us to this really interesting question. How can a simple conversation be the key to a successful audit? I mean, it sounds almost too simple, right? But the answer gets to the very heart of what modern, effective auditing is all about.
Okay, so first things first, let's get to the goal, the whole point. See, modern auditing isn't some game of gotcha. It's really about creating clarity and strengthening an organization from the inside out. That's the why behind this entire standard. At its absolute heart, the objective of ISA 260 is all about building a bridge between the auditors and, well, the people steering the ship, the leadership. And look, this isn't just some courtesy call. It's a structured two-way dialogue that really underpins accountability, transparency, and ultimately a much higher quality audit.
Okay, but any great conversation, right? It totally depends on having the right people in the room. So who are we talking about here? Who are the key players in this critical dialogue?
This standard uses this very specific, kind of formal term, those charged with governance. And believe me, that wording is super intentional. It's not just about management, the people who handle the day-to-day stuff. We're talking about the people who are responsible for the big picture, the strategic direction, and the ultimate accountability of the entire organization.
So in the real world, what does that actually mean? Well, we're talking about the board of directors or maybe a specialized audit committee. If it's a nonprofit, it could be the trustees. Basically, these are the folks who have the power and the duty to actually do something with the auditor's findings. They're the ultimate audience for all this critical information.
All right, so we know who's in the room. The next big question is, what are they talking about? You can't just wing a conversation this important. It needs a clear agenda, and that's exactly what ISA 260 provides. It mandates what topics have to be on the table.
So it all starts with the game plan, the planned scope and timing of the audit. But then it gets right into the heavy hitters. We're talking about any significant findings, any weaknesses in the company's internal controls, and this one's crucial, any disagreements the auditors had with management. And of course, fraud risks have to be on the table. So yeah, this is definitely not a casual chat. It's a high-stakes briefing, for sure.
Okay, so we got the players, we've got the agenda, but what about the rules of engagement? How and when does all this happen? Well, the standard is super clear on this.
So the communication can be verbal, right, oral, and that's great for having a real interactive discussion. But the standard really prefers a written record. And you might ask, why is that? It's simple. It creates a permanent, undeniable audit trail. It just locks everything in, what was said, who heard it, and when. There's no room for he said, she said later on.
But beyond the format, there is one rule that is absolutely paramount: timing. Timing is everything. Because think about it, information that shows up too late, it's completely useless. The whole point here is to get these insights to leadership when they can still do something about them. It's about giving them a chance to ask questions, understand the risks, and fix a small problem before it blows up into a massive one.
And all of this brings us to the payoff. The so what? Why go through all this trouble? Well, because when you get this conversation right, the benefits for the whole organization are just massive. First up, you get real transparency. For a lot of people in leadership, the whole audit process can feel like a total black box, right? This conversation, it cracks that box wide open. It gives the people in charge a clear, unfiltered look at what's really going on with the audit, its findings, and any challenges.
Benefit number 2. It builds a solid foundation of trust. I mean, when auditors are open and direct with the leadership, it creates a much stronger, more professional relationship. The whole dynamic shifts. It goes from feeling like an inspection to feeling like a collaboration, where everyone's goal is to protect the organization. And maybe, most importantly of all, it leads to smarter decisions. When the board is armed with this kind of critical, timely information from an independent source, they can tackle big issues proactively. They can steer the company way more effectively and honestly, just do their jobs with real confidence.
This quote just cuts right to the chase. So many other auditing standards are all about finding the problems, right? Detecting the misstatements. But the unique and vital job of ISA 260 is making sure those findings actually get communicated to the right people. It's that final step, that conversation, that gives the entire audit its real power.
So look, If you take away nothing else from this, just remember these 3 things. First, focus on what's actually significant. Don't get lost in the weeds. Second, be timely and be clear. And third, document everything. Seriously, that's really the essence of ISA 260.
And that leaves us with a pretty powerful final thought to chew on. Just imagine an organization, right? And there's some hidden risk just simmering below the surface. How could this one conversation, this single, mandated conversation, when it's done right, how could it completely change that organization's entire future? It's a pretty big deal to think about.